Welcome to the Totally Awesome Fishing Show. I'm Mike, and in this video I'm going to show you how to Texas rig a lure for weedless fishing. Okay, firstly is the Texas rig hook. It's quite a funky looking hook. There's actually quite a few different types out there, but these are the kind of main two types that I use, and I'll just show you the basically different profiles of these hooks. One has a straight shank at the back. This part here you can see is relatively straight, but the eye itself is kind of kicked off towards the back there. And obviously if you look at the hook point here, it's got kind of a really aggressive in-turn, and this just helps when pinching the actual lure, which I'll show you later, onto the hook. It just makes it almost more weedless with that one. This one has a more of a bent arc to it over here, and a much kind of straighter eye. And again, the hook point here is much straight profile here, whereas that one is kind of inward curving. To be honest, it's more of a personal preference, guys, each to their own. I think really it's a bit of a minefield out there with hooks as well. You can get weights built into them. It's just a case of personal preference and what works for you. As for the lures, I'm going to show you just how I rig two lures, just so you can get the idea. I'm going to use a soft plastic worm, and I'm going to show you how to rig a shad as well. First thing you should do really is tie your main line to the hook here. Just makes it easier to set up the lure by having your main line already tied, because otherwise this bit of the lure can get right near the eye and it gets difficult to tie the knot. So tie your knot on first, tie your fluorocarbon or your mono onto this area here, onto the eye, and then you can get ready to weedless rig it. I like to just measure it up like this first, so I can get an idea of what the lure and at what point, this point here, that the hook will need to come out of the lure. So I can see my hook eye is going to go in about there. Use this as a gauge of how far you should be putting your hook into the front of the lure. Okay, so it's only a couple of millimeters really there. And then what I do is you're reversing it really, so you're going in. If I do that like that, I can see that's where the hook eye would come out that side as I reverse it, because it's all going to be reversed round. So I can put my thumb there and then go through the middle of the lure. Okay, not near the top, not near the bottom, go right through the middle of that lure. And then come out. I like to come down like that. So it should look, at that point, a bit like that. Then pull your lure through, pull your hook through. You'll get to the bend here, and at this point, you're going to need to roll your lure around like that. And now you can actually start to see the actual weedless part of the rig. So the next step is, I want my lure to be straight and flush to the hook, to this part of the hook. So to see which part you need to come out at, use this part of the hook, because that's as far back as the hook goes on the lure. So what I do is I put my thumb touching against this part of the hook here, and then at which point I know that is the distance that my hook needs to go in and come out. You can then bend your lure at any angle you really want, but you need to come through that bottom part and push it through. Be careful with your fingers, and your hook point should come through the other side like that. Now you can start to line your lure up. So I can see that that's pretty much flush. It's going nice and straight. You don't want it all bent like that. You want it nice and straight. And then, that's still not technically weedless, because although that will brush off most of the weed, I can still run my finger here and I can still feel the hook point. So to just be certain that your lure is weedless, just pull the lure back on itself, let it go this side, back over the hook point, and you can see there, I can run my finger. You can see a slight lump, but I can run my finger there, and I know that I'm not touching the hook point, which means I know and I'm confident that it's weedless. As the fish come and bite this, and I'll do it from this angle just so you can see, as they swim, whether they bite it from behind or in front of the lure, but I'll do it from this side just so you can see, as they bite and push down there, that hook point then shows, and obviously if they're coming from this angle, which they will, they'll bite down, hook point shows, and then hopefully that goes into their lip. Okay, here's the shad, so we're going to do this one slightly quicker. Now obviously it's got a slight angle there, so it can be a bit tricky, but I'm just gauging it, I'm measuring it up. I know where I need to go. So I'm going to go through the top of the lure, back out, pull it round, roll it so that it's flush like that. Obviously I'd already have this tied onto my main line. Same thing as with the stick bait. I can measure up the lure there. I'm going to bend the lure. It looks awkward there, but it won't be once it's the hook point comes through, pull that hook point through, like that. There's the hook point showing, slight little nick over it, and there you go. That lure is then weedless. That can swim through the weeds and the snags, and hopefully you won't get snagged up. Really good for heavy cover, kind of rocky, snaggy if you're sea fishing, kelp beds and things like that. And if you're freshwater fishing and you want to fish deep, you can fish deep confidently knowing that your rig is weedless. Or also if you're kind of winter fishing on rivers and things like that, and there's lots of tree branches and snags in there, this is a really good way of enhancing your fishing and getting into those snaggy areas where maybe perch, pike, zander and things like that, the predator fish, can hang out. There are also different leads you can use when you're rigging a Texas rig. This is just a simple bullet weight. So that lead obviously slides down the line, comes up to meet your lure like that, and then you've got the added weight to get your lure down to the riverbed or lake bed quicker. You can also get obviously the hooks that have the weight built into them on the bottom section here, and that gets your lure down the water column slightly slower than a bullet head would. But also you can actually just fish this if you're fishing relatively shallow or you want your lure to fall down the water column slowly. You can fish with no weight and just fish with the weight of the lure itself. There's lots of other different techniques you can do. And there's just one more tip I want to show you, because although this is great and you can jig it up and down, this cone when you're casting this and when you're jigging, there's a slight delay in the jig because this bullet weight is not actually flush against the lure. It can move like this. So I'm just going to show you one tip I do that will help you to pinch this against the lure. Okay, so these are actually basically like float stops. You can get them in tackle shops or online. They're basically little rubber stops that pinch against your fishing line. They come on a little device like this with a loop in the end of it. Now what I do is, here's my lure, my setup. I want to get one of these plastic things in front of this cone weight, this bullet weight there. I basically push my main line through one of these loops, okay, and I'll try and make it a bit clearer for you so you can see, get that out of the way. There you go, so I'm pulling on it like that, and then I slide the float stop over there, and then I start to pull my main line through like that, and eventually that is now, I can pull this away, this has come off, and you can see that there is the little rubber stop. Now I've got to pull it down the line, keep pulling it, here comes the Texas rig, and that there is now pinched the bullet weight against the lure, so it can't go backwards and forwards and slide up the line. This really helps for when you're casting and you're casting out far, and also from when you want more control of your lure, because that's then direct to your main line, to the rod tip. So every movement you give on the rod tip is going to move this lead, which will in turn move that lure. So this is the finished Texas rig. You've got your kind of float stop, rubber float stop there. Got your cone or bullet weight there. My soft plastic lure and my Texas rig hook, and it just pinch it over there, and that is the finished rig. Well, thank you very much for watching, guys. That was just a short video on how to Texas rig a lure for your weedless fishing. You don't have to use it with your stick baits and shads. You can use it with other soft plastics such as creature baits and many, many more. Hopefully it improves your fishing. Thank you very much for watching. Hit the subscribe button, hit the thumbs up button, or leave a comment in the comment section below. Thank you, guys.